Hi, I'm Jen, and you're listening to the Shadow Sanctuary, where I dig into the history of haunted locations to try and find a correlation between historical fact and paranormal experience. Is there a reason for the haunting? Why does energy stay? Keep listening to find out more. Welcome to the Shadow Sanctuary. I'm your host, Jen. It's the end of the week, so relax and unwind while tonight I tell you about Greenwood Cemetery in Spokane, Washington. Before anyone tells me I'm pronouncing it wrong and it is Spokane, it is not. It is Spokane. So let's get into it. Located in the northwestern portion of the United States, Spokane, Washington has a very deep indigenous cultural history. The area was occupied by indigenous tribes 10,000 years ago. The area's indigenous people settled there due to the fertile hunting grounds and abundance of salmon in the Spokane River. The word Spokane is derived from the Salish term meaning children of the sun. The first European settlers arrived in 1810 and established a fur trading post with the indigenous tribes. The Spokane House was the first fur trade post in the area. James Nettle Glover founded the town of Spokane in 1873 as a small settlement called Spokane Falls. The city was incorporated in 1881 and became the county seat in 1887. In the late 19th century, Spokane had a problem. People were coming to the city drawn to the mining, railroad, and timber opportunities, but the small city cemeteries on the edge of the city had been rolled over by development and were strained by the boom in population that threatened their capacity. A.M. Cannon and other prominent businessmen purchased and donated land west of the city. Greenwood Cemetery, now known as Greenwood Memorial Terrace, was established in 1888. Greenwood Cemetery was designed with Europe's great Victorian cemeteries in mind. The cemetery's design has two terraces, the flats and the bench. The flats are the lowest level and contain the cemetery office, several memorials, and grave sites. The bench is where many of Spokane's first high society residents are buried. It is full of family mausoleums and large family plots. The terraces are the most modern part of the cemetery, with several military memorials, a children's section, columbariums, which hold cremated remains. Greenwood was designed as a place for the public to enjoy leisure. With natural features such as winding roads, paths, a waterfall, and spring-fed fountains, it was a grand vision of a young city itself. The first person to be buried at Greenwood Cemetery was Mrs. H. F. Nothbaum on July 1st, 1888. 50 bodies were exhumed from the old Mountain View Cemetery and were reinterred at Greenwood, along with a number of bodies from the Moran Prairie Cemetery. In the late 1800s, nothing was considered more powerful than the Transcontinental Railroad. In 1889, plans for Greenwood Cemetery indicated a proposed rail terminal underground tunnel. The project sat underfunded until the Great Northern Railroad stepped in. In 1909, work began at both the north and south ends of the tunnel. It took 13 months to complete, and the tunnel was open for business April 1st, 1910. Local lore now tells stories of Chinese laborers who died during the tunnel's construction. Through the callousness of the railroad company, they were buried at the work site. Other stories surrounding the tunnel tells of buried train cars with treasure underneath. Many people have since tried to dig back out the tunnel, but to no avail, as vegetation has grown over the tunnel's original existence. Phantom guards are also said to haunt the cemetery, chasing people out after dusk to prevent the city's buried residents from being disturbed. The most widely known story is the one about the mysterious Thousand Steps. Dating back to 1898, the cemetery had sold a piece of land to the city's fraternal organization, the Elks. The organization and the cemetery agreed that if the cemetery would build a staircase with a terrace landing, then the Elks Club would purchase plots on these terraces for their wives and children, while the men would be buried on the second terrace with their fraternal brothers. A beautiful mausoleum was built, and the terrace steps and surrounding area was decorated with exotic flowers. And a full-time gardener was even hired to maintain the area. In 1970, the organization of the Elks declared itself bankrupt, and by 1981, they sold the life-size bronze elk that sat atop the mausoleum in an attempt to cover their debts. After the Spokane chapter of the Elks dissolved, the mausoleum at the top of the stairs fell into disrepair, as did the steps themselves. That's when the hauntings began. It is said that if you walk up the stairs without any light in the dark, you will see the faces of men, women, and children. These entities guard the staircase and prevent the curious from reaching the top. Those brave enough to continue on report hearing shrieks and cries of the dead, or feeling like someone or something is touching them. SpokaneHistorical.org even says that the cemetery is haunted. What is it about cemeteries that we fear? Is it the fact that the dead rest there, the creepy stone memorials, the use of cemeteries depicted in horror movies? Cemeteries were once like local parks where people went to have picnics among those departed. Perhaps we fear cemeteries because death has become something we no longer accept, as our ancestors were forced to accept death as a reality, as it happened much more regularly. Greenwood Memorial Terrace is located at 211 North Government Way, Spokane, Washington. They are open from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. They offer historical tours, trolley tours, and ghost tours. If you visit, please remember that this is a public cemetery. Be respectful and do not trespass after hours. Let them know the Shadow Sanctuary podcast sent you. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to check us out on Facebook for more information on upcoming episodes. As always, don't let the eerie vibes fade too quickly. Stay haunted, my friends.